Hey, what is up everybody? I am Blossom here once again, and I'm back for some more of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more Let's Play of Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards for the Nintendo 64. So, last time we actually did tackle through the first main world in this game, but in forms of Popstar, and able to actually get all of these Crystal Shards and defeat the likes of the Wispy Woods. And now we're going to be continuing on and moving on to the second world in this game, but in forms of Rock Stars. So, and I guess let's go and get started right there. And of course, we'll start things off with the forms of level 1. So even I know that as far as the level progression you will concerned, it will actually start to get a little bit more slightly longer than the first world is contains, because normally the first world in the forms of Popstar normally contains 4 levels. And then this time around though, in this world, especially in level 3, 4, and 5 included, that it will actually contain 5 levels, like 4 main levels and a boss at the very end. So that's pretty obvious what how this pattern will go. But unlike how it does in the forms of, in Kirby's Dream Land 3, that normally has like 6 main levels, excluding the boss battle. But even then, that makes it a little bit far from the difference though anyway. I really do like this combination power between Needle and Needle, because it has like a screw nail, and it's basically noticeable with these every single needle objects, like the forms of the cactus, pencils, bee stinger, pencil, and fork, and the compass, and pretty much everything, which I found is really cool when it comes to the visual design and stuff like that. I kind of wish it does that in the forms of the future Kirby games. Well, we already know how the fact that Kirby Star Allies have been just recently released for about I would say 2 months for now, because even then though, today was actually forms of the 11th of May 2018, as you probably expected to. We've only got about a month left until the actual E3 is about to be starting. I'm presuming you might actually do Sony and Microsoft first, and then until a day before that, we're actually going to be coming across into a Nintendo E3 2018 conferences, which I'm really hoping that the new Yoshi game will finally get its new information, because it's almost about a year ago, ever since we actually last heard about the new Yoshi game on the Switch, which, sure, it's pretty much the exact same way as how it does in forms of, actually, before I get into this, actually, there's the first crystal right from the top over there, so even though that's pretty easy to spot, but, excuse me, that normally how the fact that we need to avoid these particular eyeball-looking blocked objects right here, because basically it functions like the same way as how it does it for Thwomps, basically for the sake of like not only for the Mario games, but also in forms of Kirby's Dream Land 3 as well, except it doesn't have eyes in Kirby's Dream Land 3 for these Thwomps, but they're more likely just an obstacle. But anyway, so to deal with this particular enemy right there, or in this case a mini boss, then we get ourselves our second crystal. It's not that hard to get, but in the third and final crystal, we do need to get our combination power, but in forms of, I would say, rock and electric abilities, because even then though, that since I've got my rock ability from such a quite long time for that point, and even then though, we need to save up for rock until we're able to actually fuse with the forms of electric ability at the same time, so that way we can able to actually get ourselves a combination powers here and there. So that's pretty obvious with this point and onwards, and yeah, as you couldn't tell already from the forms of the very beginning of this particular video, is the fact that, as you can see, my life system is now recessed into, well, it says 2, but normally it has like 3 1-ups, so even though technically speaking, my life's count is recessed to 3, because every time you turn off the main game or reset the game, normally you get yourselves your 1-ups resets. So that's pretty obvious right there, because even though, much like the ones in Kirby's Dream Land 3, that usually have to the lives will reset into forms of 3 1-ups, so that's pretty obvious. So anyways, we got ourselves this little particular block colored right there, which by the way, we do need to get ourselves the rock and electricity copy ability, so that way we can able to actually destroy that block no matter what. However though, there's a little bit of a nitpicking for this point, I have to admit though right away, is that as long as if you're able to desperately need to get yourselves a combination power so badly, but the fact of the matter is that when you're trying to able to actually throw it at certain enemies, most notably if they jump in everywhere, or in this case block projectiles back to back to each other, well, this is what makes it a little bit difficult in my opinion, just because of how the fact that you only have like 1 try in order to actually do this successfully, because if you mess things up, let's just wait until that spark enemy is actually going to finish his attack. Yeah, as you see right there, if I mess that one up, there's no way we can backtrack, because even then, much like the ones in Kirby Dreamland 3, and especially noticeable in Kirby Dreamland 2, and even in future Kirby games and onwards, it feels entirely linear, so even then, there's no way we can backtrack for certain points noticed. So unfortunately, though, I have to come back for that off-screen and then able to actually get this thing right, so that's a little bit of annoying, though. And let's go ahead and finish it off with, okay, just green stars. Never mind then. So I'll meet you guys back into the actual ending points until I get the crystal properly, so let's try this one again, so I'll meet you guys back. Alright, back at that section again, and once again I keep my rock ability with me, so I'm hoping I can able to actually just to go ahead and do a successful attempt. And as you can see, I've got myself three lives now, but well, usually technically 4, because normally, you know, whenever it reaches to 0, this means you only have 1 chance left. But anyways though. So yeah, I'm actually still pretty excited to see how the fact that the E3 2018 is going to get really, really close, and let's wait until he's done. There we go. So yeah, with the rock and electric copy ability combined, it functions the same way as how it does in the forms of Yo-Yo for quite a bit, in the forms of Kirby Superstar, except he flies all over the place with the forms of the boulder itself. And then that way you can able to actually just to destroy that rock, and there we go, that concludes that level. However though, just like the ones in the rainbow drops, especially noticeable with the secret switches in the forms of Kirby's Adventure, or even the rainbow drops in the forms of Kirby's Dreamland 2, you can able to actually pause the game and able to actually exit out the level easier, so even then though, that way you can able to actually keep that item for you. So even then though, unlike the ones in you know, in Kirby's Dreamland 3, sorry, they have to purposely try to complete the main levels before you're able to collect the hard star, which even then though, that might be sounds a little bit multitasking as far as you're aware. So anyways though, let's move on to the second level in the forms of Rockstar. Well, usually we don't explore the desert theme area throughout, unlike the first level. Well, it's more accurately a combination of both, let's just say, a desert theme level and the ruins and the cavern level, and basically when we get to the fourth level there, things will get a little bit more stranger or different, but even then we'll just see what happens there. So yeah, because of that though, that's yeah, I can't believe how the fact that we're actually breezing for this game so fast, and so far I haven't really died in this game so many times. Well, until we get to World 3 and onwards, this is where the game starts to get pretty difficult when it comes to, not only because of the actual level designs or anything like that, but it's also because of enemy contact here and there, much like how it does in the forms of, in Kirby's Dreamland 3. Well, honestly, I found the enemy behaviors a lot better than the likes of Kirby's Dreamland 3, in my opinion, just because, well, too many times I found myself back in during the likes of Kirby's Dreamland 3 is that I keep on getting hit by certain enemies loads and loads of times, mostly because of how the fact that I wasn't paying too much attention with the forms of some of these enemy behaviors sometimes, which even though that might be a little bit more off-putting, if I'd like to say so for myself for that these days. So anyways, let's grab ourselves our sandwich to get more health ammo, so that way we can able to actually refill our health back eventually. So anyways though, let's go float all the way up there to able to get an extra 1-up. So that way we can get ourselves 4 as what it says on screen, or in this case 5 1-ups if you'd like to prefer that, because I've already mentioned about this before in most of these Kirby games. Normally the, you know, when it gets to the 0 lives count, there's, you know, you get yourselves 1 chance left, so as you probably expect or 2. So anyways, let's grab the cake real quickly, without even getting hit by these little, mummy-like looking, enemies right there. So there we go. So that way we can continue on. Okay, there's the second crystal down there, much like the ones in the second level in the forms of Pop Stars. The fact that you need to able to drop down there and able to go back up after when you collect it. So even though that's pretty simple and self-explanatory right there. I will admit though right away though, is that mostly levels in this game, well, it might be a little bit longer in some instances, but for the most part though, that this game wasn't nearly as long as compared to how it does in the forms of Kirby's Dreamland 3, I don't think. Well, usually it might actually be the exact same length when it comes to the level layouts or something like that. Well, usually Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, like, you know, the first world always, like, contains the, 4 levels apiece. Well, 3 main levels, excluding the boss battle at the very end. And, later on, when it gets to World 2 and, 3, 4, and 5, that it usually gets like 4 main levels and a boss battle at the very end. And the 6th level might actually Well, I'll explain more on that later, because even then, we're not going to spoil anything like that. Actually, I'd probably suggest that right from the start, though, is that I probably should be able to actually explain the actual, the story of this game itself. Is the fact that, this game takes place immediately after the events of, I would say from Kirby's Dream Land 3, well, minus the forms of, you know, the absence of the forms of the animal friends, after all. Well, it wasn't until when we get to, World 3 and onwards that I might actually show you guys the coolest, combination powers by the forms of the copy ability combinations and stuff like that when we get to World 3. But I digress though, so anyway. Yeah, for this particular perspective, also it does remind me of something related to a 2.5D platforming game by the forms of Klonoa Daughter Phantomile for the PlayStation 1. Which even then though, in that game, it does have a 3D backdrops, and then every single sprite is entirely in 2D, which I found is actually really cool in concept. New forms of in Klonoa Daughter Phantomile game. Speaking of Klonoa, one thing I should probably mention this right away though is the fact that, unfortunately though, for those of you actually still waiting for able to actually hope to see the Klonoa Marathon, though we're originally trying to do this year, unfortunately though, it will be a little bit of a slight of a delay when we get to a couple of months ahead, or even especially noticeable until 2019, because I tested out by the forms of well, I still managed to get myself Klonoa Daughter Phantomile for the forms of the PlayStation download, in the forms of the PlayStation 3 console. Unfortunately though, it does have a little bit of an issue, but in forms of, if you ever guys who lived in UK, because if you actually didn't manage to spot it to actually recognize the United States of the American flag, or emblem I should say, basically that what happens if you do manage to play this on your PAL PlayStation 3, it just slows down the entire thing completely, which means it actually automatically sets into, well, it usually sets in 60Hz mode, but it's just the actual game runs at 50 frames, or the 50Hz mode, which I found is a little bit more disgusting to me. Well, it's nothing totally major, but it's just how the fact that it just really slows down the music, and Jesus Christ, I prefer the 60Hz mode over to the 50Hz mode, compared to games like, you know, Sonic the Hedgehog 1 on the Mega Drive, that normally has like an issue with the forms of the 50Hz mode, that it just slows everything down. Well, at least in the 60Hz mode, it did manage to fix everything by the forms of the 60Hz mode, which everything else looks a lot more normal to me. But I digress. So anyways though, as you can see on that particular section right there, we actually take control of King Dedede right there, which I think is actually pretty cool, because this is when Kirby's Adventure Wii / Return to Dreamland, and even especially noticeable in Kirby Triple Deluxe for the Nintendo 3DS, we normally can be able to actually play as King Dedede at some points, which I think is actually pretty cool though. And yeah, you can able to actually use his hammer swing to able to break through walls and all that stuff. I know I haven't explained this for about a few seconds ago, because I normally explain a lot of stuff in the forms of upcoming events for our YouTube channel these days. Even especially noticeable by the forms of some awesome stuff coming soon, but even then, that's just besides the off topic here. So anyways, welcome to level 3 in the forms of Rockstar, and basically we need to get ourselves a combination of, I would say, rock and rock all together, because that way we can get ourselves our first crystal in this level. But unfortunately though, we couldn't get a chance to grab it, because as far as I've seen this, as far as you're concerned about this, there is no rock enemy in the very beginning of this particular level. So even then, I probably should get this off screen, or even you can able to actually get this by the forms of level 2-1. So even then, I can able to actually grab that from here. Okay, go onto the sinkhole on the left, because the reason why I say that is because, well, first off, not only does it actually gives you to actually able to get yourselves a mini fight you get to deal with right there by the forms of the swordfish, but also because they might be containing a crystal shard in here. So even then, after when you defeat the mini boss first. So there we go. That basically does it from here, and we get ourselves a free counter ability from our dispersal, and we get ourselves a crystal there. Because yeah, if you go onto the actual quicksand on the right from the early screen ago, you're pretty much gonna have to bypass the crystal completely, and even especially noticeable by the forms of basically for pretty much everything else. So yeah, that's all I can come across for this point, because even I know, yeah, here's one of the most uniquest Kirby ability combinations in this game by the forms of Kirby's ice skating. What is it expected if he's gonna be hosting for the Winter Olympics? Well, we've already have the Winter Olympics just this year recently, but in forms of, you know, take place in South Korea, but normally the next Winter Olympics is going to be hosting and during the likes of the Beijing, and new forms of in China, so even though that will be expected the next Winter Olympics will be coming up, but even then, could be possibly actually be kind of weird to able to actually have Kirby anticipation, but in forms of in the Winter Olympics. That would be very, very, very cool if you ask me, if you imagine that, but anyway. Okay, so let's continue on and just avoid those little munchers right there, because that way it just also hurts you. Okay, quick air right there, because after basically, not only just for the sake of like just trying to able to actually just think about trying to get crystal shards from the very beginning, but it's also because I have to charge my laptop battery quickly, because for some reason, every time when I was trying to do some recording sessions like this, it was basically noticeable that I usually managed to charge it for about couple of minutes later, but then next thing you notice what happens is that it drains so much. But anyways though, so anyway, let's go ahead and just go and swim underwater, which thankfully though, unlike the ones in both Kirby's Dream Land 1, and especially noticeable in Kirby's Adventure, that, and also the same applies to how it does in the forms of in Kirby's Dream Land 2 and Dream Land 3, that normally you're not able to actually suck up these particular projectiles from the underwater sections. Oh yeah, excluding the likes of Kirby Superstar as well, which thankfully though, in this particular game, we can now actually suck up those projectiles in underwater, which I think is actually a little bit of a more of improvement, especially noticeable when we get to the next world in this game, that there might be a prime example of how this little prefaces like this. So anyways though, before you leave the level, because the stars will actually lead you to the very end of the level, don't go enter that yet, because that particular crystal shard we need to get. So there we go, that pretty much does it for this level. Well, we weren't exactly done with this particular level just yet, because there's actually one crystal I actually missing out. But it forms of the very first one, which again, we do need to get ourselves, I would say, a combination of both rock and rock at the same time. But anyway, so let's go ahead and just head back into the first level quickly. Don't worry, it's not going to be that long. But even then, I know exactly a way you can able to get yourselves rocks so easily, is the fact that we can able to explore this particular level right there. And then when you get to the rock copy ability enemies row section, we can basically guarantee how the fact that, what the Christ? Oh jeez. Basically what happens is though, is the fact that if you couldn't tell already, that why this sandwich has been completely destroyed. The reason being for that is because, what if I was a little bit too picky, almost, is the fact that, okay, there we go. There we go, so that's a combination of both rock and rock, so that way we can able to hit back to this level right there, and able to actually go ahead and get ourselves a crystal shard that way. And it's a good thing that we can able to actually leave the level too, because much like the ones in, you know, in Kirby's Adventure, and especially noticeable in new forms of Kirby's Dream Land 2 and 3, that you can able to actually keep your copy abilities, and including your animal friends as well. So even then though, that is a good thing that you can able to actually keep your copy abilities every time when you actually leave the level. So even then, that's actually a really good thing. So anyways though, as I mentioned this before, we need to use the rock and rock combiners all in one, and that way we can actually break through that particular obstacle there, and that way we can get ourselves our third and final crystal on this particular level. Granted, it was actually the first crystal you can able to spot in on that level, but I digress. So now we move on to level 4 in new forms of Rockstar, and it looks like we appears to be ended up approaching towards this black pyramid again. Very much like the ones in new forms of in Kirby's Dream Land 3, which, you know, this game feels remarkably similar in terms of ad sets in new forms of some of these level layouts, just like the ones in Kirby's Dream Land 3 in some emphasis. So anyways though, oh god, that almost trying to hurt me right there. So anyways though, since we got ourselves our bomb with us in the very beginning of the level, that means we can able to actually just go ahead and find ourselves our electric ability, because the reason why we need to get ourselves both bomb and electric combinations when it comes to these copy abilities and stuff like that, well, that's only because when we actually get into that a little bit later, because even then though, first off we need to dodge those specific plasma blastoids, but it forms of this little cannons and stuff like that, which even though, thanks to that perspective, it makes dodging some of the stuff really easy this time around. Well, usually for the most part though anyway, I'll repeat for the most part sometimes, but I digress. Alright, so I believe that the first crystal is going to be on here, which I can definitely see on screen, because even then though, we have to navigate through shifting platforms between the yellow, and a pink platform side to side. And then basically all we have to do is basically we need to go onto a direct center right there. Just don't get crushed in this particular area, because if what happens is, though, is the fact that you instantly get yourselves killed. So anyways, let's go ahead and toss the bomb into the electricity type enemy. So that way we can get ourselves a combination of both bomb and electric ability. So that way we can able to actually use that for this next room. Because even though after this room, then we're pretty much going to be able to use those specific combinations when we're able to actually demonstrate with this. So yeah, we basically ended up inside the actual Techno Pyramid, much like the ones in Kirby Dream Land 3, except it doesn't have a really cool background or anything like that, so it still looks pretty cool design, but anyways. So this is the reason why we do need to get ourselves a bomb and electric copy abilities, is that as you can see, if you manage to use that, basically, Ado doesn't know where the actual icon showed up, because everything else is entirely black lit. Well, basically, what we have to do is basically we need to figure out the code, and there's only 3 codes here and there. And then basically, after when you solve this, then you get us also crystals. So that's about it. It will be randomized every time you're actually able to actually start your new game, or even especially noticeable if you actually revisit the actual levels themselves. But I'm presuming I might be right about this. But anyway. Well, thankfully though, that this level wasn't nearly as long as compared to how it does in the forms of the last level in the forms of Sand Canyon, in the forms of Kirby Dream Land 3, because you have to do a lot of multitasking in the forms of Kirby Dream Land 3, in the forms of the 6th level, in the forms of the Sand Canyon level, because you know the rock parts that you have to collect. Oh no. Oh, yeah, that was close. Okay then, so we got ourselves a combination of both electric and electric at the same time. So that way we can able to actually... Oh god, I almost died there by getting crushed. Anyways though, for this particular combination power between electric and electric is the fact that Kirby can able to actually use himself this little electrical barrier of any sorts, and basically he can able to actually use the electric in any sort of directions, which I think is actually pretty cool. But there we go, that concludes all these crystal shards that we've collected in the forms of World 2, so now let's go ahead and finish the main level off. Well, simply we need to able to actually, I would say climb for those little electrical poles there, which even then, that way it can able to actually do a thing. And basically, if you ever think about trying to be able to hop onto those particular electrical poles, be sure to watch out for those little particular electricity enemies right there, because they immediately appeared after when you're able to hop onto the actual poles themselves. So there we go. And we got ourselves the question mark card. With these are basically body forms of these enemy info cards, which basically, it's all randomized though, because it's all in the question marks after all. But if you want able to collect every single enemy info card, I believe there are a grand total of 81 enemy info cards, which even then though, that might be sounds a little bit multitasking, and as I mentioned to you earlier. But even then though, let's just say that much until now, these are incredibly randomized, and even then though, that it doesn't matter what cards you'll be getting throughout, so it's just basically it's all randomized, but I digress. So here we go folks, here's the next boss in this game, but in forms of pigs. Because I say pigs, it's because, well, it's basically the trio boss fights, which we have ourselves not only 3 diamonds, but also represents 3 different colors, but in forms of, well, first off we have red, green, and blue here. And yeah, we have to basically just have to dodge their attacks in the first phase. And the second phase, on the other hand though, that we can able to actually have the ability to attack them. So even then though, this particular sequence right there also reminds me of Bowser's Lovely Lift in Mario Party 7, except, well, we don't have to deal with dice blocks or anything like that, so it instantly does that for you. So anyways, when it goes all the way to the top, it's your chance to able to attack those pigs. So even then though, that way we can able to actually... Oh, how that hurt me? So anyways, all you have to do is basically we need to send those projectiles right back at them. I suggest you able to actually attack the ones that usually has the exact same color between each other, because that way it'll do a certain amount of damage. I mean, that'll be a good damage rating, but it falls to that specific statement. Of course, you can do it with other colors here and there as well, but it won't be as effective. But even then, though, that's just how you usually can get about it. But even then, though, yeah. I actually do like this boss fight. It does feel a little bit more different in terms of the actual bosses itself, like to be like this. But even then though, that you can able to actually fight all 3 of them, just like the ones in you know, Pon and Con in the forms of in Kirby Stream Land 3, but they're only about 2 of those boss fights you have to deal with in one battle. But anyways though, let's go ahead and just finish this world up, and let's see how these picks were able to actually combine it together, and it explodes. And let's obtain a crystal shard, and there we go, we've managed to fully conclusively done with Rockstar. Oh, Kirby almost finished his piece of cake. Oh, I'm guessing King DDD was actually thinking that, come on, let's just get this adventure over with, shall we? Anyways though, so I'm afraid guys, we have to end things off at this point here, so join me next time on Let's Play Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards. It's the fact that we're going to be moving on to the third world in the game, by the forms of Aqua Star, which is basically a water-themed world. So yeah, see you guys next time. Later fellas.